Hey there, friends. I'm so excited to share a super fun story with you today. But first, I've got a quick question. Have you ever met someone who acted like they were the boss of everything? Maybe they told you what to do or tried to make silly rules. Drop a comment below and tell me about it. Oh, and let me know where you're watching from today, maybe from your bedroom, the living room, or even school. If you love cool stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Ready? Let's dive in. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in a place called Pinewood Estates. This was a cozy little neighborhood, the kind where kids zoomed around on bikes, dogs chased balls in the grass, and neighbors smiled and waved at each other. The houses were neat and tidy, with colorful flowers in the yards and shiny mailboxes by the road. On warm days like this, you could hear birds chirping and ice cream trucks jingling in the distance. It felt like the perfect place to live. Well, almost perfect. See, there was one person who made things a little less fun for everyone. Her name was Karen Mitchell, and she was the president of the HOA. Now you might be wondering, what's an HOA? It's a group that makes rules for the neighborhood to keep everything nice and orderly. Sounds okay, right? But Karen took it way too far. She acted like she owned every single house, every tree, and even the sidewalks. Everyone in Pinewood Estates knew her because she was always walking around with a big clipboard, a grumpy frown, and a voice so loud it could wake up a sleeping dog. Karen had rules for everything. No skateboards on the street. She'd yell at kids just trying to have fun. No loud music. She'd snap if someone played a song too loud. No bright colors on your mailbox. She'd grumble even if someone painted it a cheerful yellow. One time, she told a little girl she couldn't draw chalk pictures on her own driveway because it looked messy. Can you believe that? Karen's rules weren't just strict. They made the neighborhood feel like a place where fun wasn't allowed. The people started calling her HOA Karen behind her back, and you can probably guess why. Everywhere Karen went, she carried that clipboard like it was a magic wand. She'd scribble notes about anything she didn't like: a bike left on a lawn, a basketball hoop that was too tall, or even a kid running too fast. Neighbors would roll their eyes when they saw her coming. Some tried to talk to her nicely, but Karen never listened. She'd just point at her clipboard and say, "Rules are rules." It was like she thought being the HOA president made her the queen of Pinewood Estates. Now, not everyone let Karen ruin their day. There was a new kid in the neighborhood named Jake Carter. Jake was 15 years old, with messy brown hair that always stuck up in funny ways, a big smile that made people like him right away, and a pair of sneakers that were always a little dirty from exploring. He just moved to Pinewood Estates with his family, and he was excited to make new friends. Jake wasn't the kind of kid who caused trouble. He was polite, helped his mom carry groceries, and even picked up trash he saw on the sidewalk. But there was one thing Jake loved more than anything else: his electric scooter. Oh, that scooter was Jake's pride and joy. It was shiny silver with bright blue wheels that lit up when he rode it. It wasn't super fancy, but to Jake, it was the coolest thing ever. He'd zip around the neighborhood, feeling the warm breeze on his face, dodging cracks in the sidewalk, and waving at anyone he passed. The scooter wasn't loud or dangerous, it just went fast enough to make Jake feel free. When he rode it, he forgot about homework, chores, or anything that made him worry. It was like his own little adventure machine. But guess who didn't like Jake's scooter? Yup, you got it, Karen Mitchell. From the moment Jake moved in, Karen had her eyes on him. The first time she saw him riding, she marched right up, her clipboard flapping in her hand. "Young man," she shouted, pointing a finger at him. "What do you think you're doing with that thing?" Jake stopped his scooter and looked at her, confused. "It's just my scooter," he said politely. "I'm not hurting anyone." But Karen wasn't having it. "Scooters are dangerous." She barked. "They're not allowed in my neighborhood." Jake blinked. Her neighborhood? He didn't say anything, but he thought it was pretty weird. After that, Karen seemed to watch Jake like a hawk. Every time he took his scooter out, she'd pop up out of nowhere, like she was hiding behind a bush just waiting for him. "Slow down," she'd yell, even if Jake was barely moving. "You're going to break something," she'd warn, even though he was super careful. One day, she even told him his scooter was too shiny and might bother the neighbors. Jake couldn't help but laugh a little at that one. A shiny scooter bothering people, really. Most kids might have gotten mad or scared, but Jake was different. He didn't argue with Karen or talk back. He'd just nod and say, "Okay, Ms. Mitchell," then ride off with a smile. See, Jake wasn't just a regular kid. He had a secret, something nobody in Pinewood Estates knew about, not even his new friends. It wasn't a bad secret, like he was sneaking candy or hiding a pet lizard. No, it was something way bigger, something that made Jake a lot smarter and braver than people thought. And that secret, it was going to change everything for Karen and the whole neighborhood. Now I know you're probably wondering, what's Jake's secret? I'm not going to tell you just yet, it's way too good to spill right away. But here's a hint, Jake wasn't just riding his scooter for fun. He was watching things, noticing stuff that other people missed. Every time Karen yelled at him, he learned a little more about her. Every time she waved that clipboard, he saw something she didn't want anyone to see. Now, Jake was like a detective on a scooter, piecing together a puzzle nobody else even knew existed. The neighborhood kept going on like normal, with kids playing and parents chatting, but something was brewing. Karen thought she was in charge, making everyone follow her rules. She thought Jake was just a kid she could boss around. Boy, was she wrong. Jake's secret was like a spark, ready to light up the whole story. And when it finally came out, it was going to make Karen wish she'd never picked on him or his scooter. So what do you think is going on with Jake? Do you think he's got a plan to deal with Karen? Stick with me, because this story is about to get super exciting. I promise you won't want to miss what happens next. Let's keep going together and find out how Jake's adventure turns out. Oh, and don't forget to tell me in the comments, have you ever had to deal with someone like Karen? I can't wait to hear your stories. Okay, friends, let's get back to our story. Things are about to heat up in Pinewood Estates. Have you ever met someone who acted super tough but seemed kind of nervous, like they were hiding something? Drop a comment below and tell me about it. Oh, and while you're at it, let me know what you think Karen might be hiding. This part's gonna keep you guessing, so stick with me. From the very first day Jake Carter moved into the neighborhood, Karen Mitchell, the HOA president, had it out for him. It was like she'd made it her mission to make his life tricky. Every single time Jake hopped on his shiny silver electric scooter, Karen would appear out of nowhere like a grumpy cat pouncing on a mouse. She'd wave her arms around like she was directing traffic, her clipboard bouncing in her hand. "That thing's way too fast." She'd yell, her voice loud enough to scare birds out of the trees. "You're breaking all the HOA rules, young man." Jake would just stop his scooter, look at her, and nod politely. "Okay, Ms. Mitchell," he'd say, calm as could be, but inside, oh, he was annoyed, really annoyed. He'd checked the HOA rulebook himself, yep, he actually read it, and guess what? There wasn't a single word about scooters, not one. Karen was just making stuff up to boss him around. Still, Jake didn't argue. He wasn't that kind of kid. He kept his cool, but he was starting to wonder why Karen cared so much about his little scooter. It wasn't just that Karen yelled. It was how she acted, like Jake was some kind of troublemaker. He was just a 15-year-old who liked riding around, feeling the breeze, and saying hi to neighbors. His scooter wasn't loud or dangerous, it barely made a sound, just a soft hum as he rolled along. But Karen treated him like he was racing a monster truck through her front yard. Every day it was something new. "You're going to hit someone," she'd shout one time. "That scooter's an eyesore." She'd complain the next, "An eyesore? It was just silver and blue." Jake couldn't figure out why she was so mad all the time. Then one day, Karen went way too far. It was a sunny afternoon, and Jake was riding his scooter super slowly down the street, not bothering a soul. He was humming a little tune, waving at a neighbor watering her flowers, when suddenly, boom, Karen stormed out of her house like a tornado. Her face was red as a ripe tomato and her eyes were wide and wild. "You," she screamed, pointing right at Jake. "You're a menace, a total menace." Jake stopped his scooter and blinked at her, confused. A menace, him. He was just riding to the corner and back. Karen kept going, her voice getting louder and louder. "I've had it with you and that stupid scooter," she shouted. "If I see you riding that thing one more time, I'm calling the cops. You hear me? The cops." The whole street seemed to go quiet. A kid on a bike stopped to stare. A dog even stopped barking. Jake's heart started racing. Nobody wants to hear about the police, right? But he didn't let it show. He just looked at Karen and said, "Okay, Ms. Mitchell," in his calmest voice. Here's the thing though, Jake wasn't scared. Not really. Sure, his heart was thumping, but he dealt with bullies before and Karen was acting like a big one. He stood there, one foot on his scooter, and noticed something weird. Karen's hands were shaky, like she'd had too much soda or something. She kept glancing back at her house, her eyes darting to her front door, then her garage, then back to Jake. It was like she was nervous about something, but what? Why would yelling at a kid make her so jittery? Jake tilted his head, watching her closely. Something wasn't right. See, Jake was a smart kid. He wasn't just good at riding his scooter, he was good at noticing things. Little things other people missed, like how Karen's clipboard wasn't just for show. She was always scribbling stuff down, but she held it tight, like she didn't want anyone to see what she wrote. Or how she'd get extra mad when Jake rode near her house, but not so much when he was on the other side of the neighborhood. And now this shaky hands thing, it made Jake's brain start buzzing. What's she so nervous about? He wondered. Is she hiding something? Jake didn't say a word about what he noticed. He just pushed his scooter to the side and walked home, acting like nothing was wrong. But inside, his mind was racing. He'd met people like Karen before, people who acted big and tough to cover up something else. Maybe she was just mad about scooters, or maybe it was something bigger, something way bigger. Jake's gut told him Karen wasn't just being mean for no reason. There was a puzzle here, and he was determined to figure it out. As he walked away, Karen stood on her lawn, still huffing and puffing, her face all red and her clipboard clutched tight. She thought she'd won that round, that she'd scared Jake off for good. But she didn't know Jake. He wasn't the kind of kid who gave up easily. He'd been through tough stuff before, moving to new places, starting at new schools, even dealing with kids who picked on him for being the new guy. Every time, he'd stayed calm and figured things out. And now he was starting to think Karen was the one who should be worried, not him. The neighborhood went back to normal that afternoon, or at least it looked that way. Kids kept playing, cars drove by, and the ice cream truck jingled down the street. But Jake was different. He wasn't just a kid on a scooter anymore. He was a kid with a question burning in his brain. What's Karen hiding? Every time she yelled at him, every time she waved that clipboard, she gave him another clue. And Jake, he was collecting those clues like puzzle pieces, waiting for the moment they'd all fit together. So what do you think? Is Karen just a grumpy lady who hates scooters, or is there something sneaky going on? I bet you've got some ideas. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone like Karen tried to boss you around? Would you ignore her, talk back, or maybe start watching her like Jake did? This story's getting juicy and I can't wait to share what happens next. Keep watching because Jake about to find out something that'll surprise everyone. Alright friends, buckle up because this story is getting even more exciting. Have you ever seen something weird and wondered what was going on? Maybe a neighbor acting sneaky or a strange noise at night? Drop a comment below and tell me what you'd do. Would you check it out or just let it go? Oh, and let me know what you think Jake going to find out next. This part's full of surprises, so let's jump back into Pinewood Estates. After that big showdown where Karen yelled about calling the cops, things didn't calm down. Nope, they got worse, way worse. Karen Mitchell, the HOA president with her clipboard and grumpy face, turned into Jake Carter's shadow. Every time Jake took his shiny silver scooter out for a ride, there she was, following him like a bee buzzing around a flower. She wasn't just yelling anymore, she was on a mission to make Jake's life tough. Karen started doing something really strange. She'd whip out her phone and snap pictures of Jake while he rode his scooter. Click, 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 she'd hold her phone up, her lips pursed like she'd eaten a sour lemon, and take photo after photo. I'm building a case, she'd shout, loud enough for everyone on the street to hear. This kid's a troublemaker and I'm going to prove it. She'd wave her phone around, bragging to anyone who'd listen, mostly the neighbors, who just nodded and walked away. Most people didn't care about her case. They were tired of her rules and her yelling, but Karen, she acted like she was a detective in a movie and Jake was the bad guy. Jake, though, he didn't let it bother him, not on the outside anyway. When Karen took her pictures or called him names, he'd just stop his scooter, look at her and say, "Okay, Ms. Mitchell," with a little smile. That smile drove Karen nuts. She wanted him to get mad or scared, but Jake stayed cool as a cucumber. What she didn't know was that Jake was watching her just as much as she was watching him. Yup, while Karen thought she was the one in charge, Jake was noticing things that made him go, something's not right here. See, Jake had a sharp brain. He was the kind of kid who could spot a missing puzzle piece or figure out why his video game wasn't working. And now, he was using that brain to watch Karen. Over the next few days, he started seeing stuff that was, well, weird. First, there was her garage. Corinne's house was like all the others in Pinewood Estates, neat, with a green lawn and a mailbox out front. But her garage, it was always locked tight. Not just closed, but locked with a big, shiny padlock, even when Corinne was home. Jake rode by her house a bunch of times, and he never saw that garage door open, not once. Most people left their garages open sometimes, maybe to grab a rake or park their car. But Corinne, nope, that lock stayed on like she was guarding a treasure chest. Then there was the delivery truck thing. One afternoon, Jake was riding his scooter when a big brown delivery truck rumbled down the street. No big deal, right? Delivery trucks came all the time, dropping off packages of toys or clothes. But when Corinne saw that truck, she acted like it was a monster coming to get her. She was standing on her porch sipping lemonade when the truck slowed down near her house. Her eyes got wide and she spilled her drink all over her shirt. She ran inside so fast you'd think her shoes were on fire. Jake slowed his scooter and watched. The truck just dropped a box at a neighbor's house and drove off, but Corinne stayed inside for hours. Why was she so jumpy about a delivery truck? Jake tucked that little clue away in his brain. The weirdest thing happened one night, though. It was after dinner and Jake was riding his scooter home before it got too dark. The streetlights were flickering on and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. As he passed Corinne's house, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. Flashing lights, red and blue lights spinning like tops right in front of her driveway. Cop cars, 2 of them. Jake stopped his scooter behind a tree and peeked out. The police were there, their radios crackling, but they weren't banging on Corinne's door or anything. They just stood by their cars, talking quietly, then got in and drove away. The whole thing was over in like 5 minutes. Jake waited until the cars were gone, then rode closer. Corinne's house looked normal, no open windows, no lights on, nothing. The next morning, she was out on her lawn like always, yelling at a kid for leaving a soccer ball in the street. She acted like nothing had happened, but Jake wasn't fooled. Cop cars didn't just show up for no reason. His gut was telling him something was up, something big. He didn't know what it was yet, but he was determined to find out. Every time Corinne got mad at him, Jake stayed super calm. She'd scream, "You're ruining this neighborhood," or "Get that scooter off my street," and he'd just nod and say, "Okay, Ms. Mitchell." But inside, he was like a detective in a mystery book, keeping track of every strange thing she did. That locked garage, check. The delivery truck panic, check. The cop cars at night, double check. Jake wasn't sure how it all fit together, but he knew Corinne wasn't just a grumpy lady who hated scooters. She was hiding something, and he had a feeling it was going to blow everyone's minds. What made Jake so good at this? Well, he had a knack for figuring things out. Back at his old school, he'd solved little mysteries like who kept stealing snacks from the classroom or why the library computer was always broken. He didn't brag about it, but he loved puzzles. And now Corinne was his biggest puzzle yet. Every time she snapped a picture or waved her clipboard, she was giving him another piece. Little did she know, Jake wasn't just a kid with a scooter. He was a kid who could crack a case, and he was getting closer every day. The neighborhood kept buzzing along with kids riding bikes and parents mowing lawns, but Jake felt like he was in a secret game. Karen thought she was winning, following him around and acting tough. But Jake was watching, waiting, and thinking. He didn't know what he'd find, but he knew one thing for sure. Karen's secrets weren't safe for long. So what would you do if you saw something suspicious like Jake did? Would you keep watching or would you tell someone? I bet you're curious about what's in that garage. Tell me in the comments, what do you think Karen's hiding? This story's getting wild and I can't wait to share the next part. Keep watching because Jake about to stumble onto something huge. Alright friends, get ready, this is the part you've been waiting for. The story about to explode with surprises. Can you guess what's going to happen next? Have you ever seen someone get caught when they thought they were in charge? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think's coming. Oh, and let me know if you're rooting for Jake. I bet you are. This moment's super exciting, so let's dive back into Pinewood Estates and see what goes down. It was a bright Saturday morning, the kind where the sun shines extra happy and kids are out playing before breakfast. Jake Carter was riding his shiny silver scooter down the quiet streets of the neighborhood, just minding his own business. His messy hair bounced in the breeze and he was humming a little song, not bothering anybody. The birds were singing, a dog was barking somewhere, and everything felt peaceful. Well, peaceful for about 5 seconds, because then Karen Mitchell came bursting out of her house like a tornado spinning out of control. "And that's it," Karen shrieked, her voice so loud it echoed off the houses. She held up her phone like it was a sword, pointing it right at Jake. "I'm done with you, kid. I'm calling 911 right now. You're finished." Her face was redder than a fire truck and her eyes were wild, like she'd finally snapped. Jake stopped his scooter dead in its tracks and looked at her, calm as a sunny day. He didn't yell back or run away. Nope. He just leaned on his scooter, one foot on the ground, and said, "Go ahead, Ms. Mitchell." His voice was soft, like he was talking about the weather. Karen's eyes got huge, like two big marbles. She wasn't expecting that. She thought Jake would beg her to stop or maybe cry, but he just stood there, cool as could be. It threw her off and for a second she froze, her phone shaking in her hand. Then she snapped out of it and started dialing 911, her fingers fumbling. "Hello, police," she yelled into the phone, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "There's a dangerous kid on a scooter in my neighborhood. He's breaking every single HOA rule. You need to send someone right now." She kept going, calling Jake a menace and a troublemaker, her voice getting louder with every word. The neighbors started peeking out their windows. A lady watering her flowers turned to stare. Two kids on bikes stopped to watch, their mouths open. Karen was making a big scene and she loved it. She thought she'd finally won, that the police would come and take Jake's scooter away for good. She even smirked at him like she was saying, "Got you now, kid." But here's the thing, Jake wasn't worried, not one bit. Why? Because he knew something Karen didn't, something huge. See, Jake had a secret weapon, his Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike wasn't just a cool guy who took Jake fishing or taught him how to fix a bike. He was a police officer and a really good one. For weeks, Jake had been telling Uncle Mike about Karen's weird behavior, her locked garage, her panic over delivery trucks, those cop cars that showed up at her house one night. Jake didn't know what it all meant, but he knew it was fishy, and Uncle Mike listened. That very morning, before Jake went out to ride, Uncle Mike had called him. Keep an eye out today, Jake, he'd said. We've been watching Ms. Mitchell, not for scooters, for something way bigger. Now, Jake didn't know all the details, but he trusted his uncle. So when Karen was screaming about 911, Jake just stood there, his heart beating steady, a tiny smile tugging at his lips. He wasn't scared of the police coming. In fact, he was kind of excited. Karen had no idea what was about to hit her. Before she could even hang up her phone, the sound of sirens cut through the air. Wee-oo, wee-oo, 2 police cars zoomed into the neighborhood, their red and blue lights flashing bright. They pulled right up to Karen's house, tires crunching on the street. Karen's face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. Her phone slipped a little in her hand and her smirk disappeared. She looked at Jake, then at the cars, then back at Jake, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The car doors opened and 2 officers stepped out. One was tall with a friendly face and the other was Uncle Mike himself. Jake's heart jumped when he saw his uncle, but he kept his cool. Uncle Mike gave Jake a quick wave and a grin. "Hey kid," he said, like they were just chatting at a barbecue. Then he turned to Karen, his face getting serious. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, "we need to have a little talk. Mind if we take a look in your garage?" Karen's jaw dropped so low it practically hit the ground. My garage," she stammered, her voice all squeaky now. She clutched her clipboard tight like it could save her. "Why would you want to see my garage? This is about him." She pointed at Jake, her finger shaking. "He's the one breaking rules." But the officers didn't even look at Jake. They kept their eyes on Karen, and Uncle Mike raised an eyebrow. "The garage, Ms. Mitchell," he said again, calm but firm. By now, the whole neighborhood was watching. People came out of their houses, standing on their lawns, whispering to each other. The kids on bikes rolled closer, eyes wide. The lady with the flowers put down her watering can. Even a dog stopped chasing its tail to stare. Jake just stood there, his scooter by his side, watching it all unfold. He didn't say a word, but inside, he was buzzing with excitement. This was it, the moment he'd been waiting for, even if he didn't know it until now. Karen tried to argue. "You can't just look in my garage," she snapped, but her voice was wobbly, like she was trying to sound tough but wasn't sure anymore. "I'm the HOA president. I keep this place safe." Uncle Mike didn't budge. He crossed his arms and said, "We have a warrant, Ms. Mitchell. That means we can look. Now please open the garage or we'll do it ourselves." "A warrant? That's a special paper from a judge that says the police can check something out." Karen's face went from pale to green, like she was going to be sick. The other officer walked toward the garage, holding a piece of paper, the warrant. Karen stood frozen, her clipboard slipping from her hands and landing on the grass with a soft thud. She didn't move to pick it up. She just stared at the garage door, her eyes darting around like she was looking for a way to run, but there was nowhere to go. The neighbors were all around, the police were right there, and Jake was watching, his scooter gleaming in the sun. Uncle Mike nodded to the other officer, who pulled out a key. Yup, they already had a key to her fancy padlock. Karen gasped, but she couldn't stop them. The officer walked to the garage, slid the key into the lock, and turned it with a loud click. The garage door started to roll up, slow and creaky, and every single person held their breath. Jake leaned forward, his heart pounding. What was inside? What had Karen been hiding all this time? Oh, it's a shocker, friends. Can you guess what they found? I'm not telling yet, you'll find out soon. Tell me in the comments, what do you think's in that garage? Is it something scary, sneaky, or totally wild? This story's at its biggest moment, so keep watching to see what happens next. Okay, friends, here we go, the big finish to our story. How cool would it feel to solve a mystery and help your neighborhood? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Would you be excited like Jake? Oh, and let me know if you're happy about how this turns out. Let's jump back to Pinewood Estates and see what happens next. The police officers rolled up Karen's garage door, and wow, you won't believe what they found. The whole garage was stuffed with stolen stuff. There were boxes piled high with shiny electronics like phones and tablets. There were fancy bikes with sparkly paint leaning against the wall. There was even a neighbor's missing lawnmower, the one Mr. Johnson had been looking for all summer. Everyone's jaws dropped. The neighbors gasped and whispered to each other. Nobody could believe it. Karen, the HOA president, was a thief. It turned out Karen had been sneaking around, taking things from people's yards and porches. She'd grab a bike here, a package there, even tools and toys left outside. Then she'd sell it all online to make money. She thought she was so smart, hiding everything in her locked garage. She figured nobody would suspect her because she was the bossy HOA lady who made all the rules. Boy, was she wrong. The cops started pulling stuff out of the garage, making a big pile on Karen's lawn. Neighbors walked over, pointing at things they recognized. "That's my son's bike," one lady shouted. "That's our radio," said another. Karen's face went from green to white, like she knew she was in big trouble. She tried to wiggle out of it, waving her arms and yelling, "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything. Someone else put that stuff there." But nobody believed her. The police had proof, and all her lies fell apart like a wobbly tower of blocks. The officers gently took Karen by the arm and led her to the police car. She kept arguing, her voice all squeaky, but they just shook their heads. One cop opened the car door and Karen had to sit inside, her head hanging low. The neighbors watched, some shaking their heads, others clapping. They were done with her boss.